Welcome back, everyone, to Magic with Class. I am continuing day 5 of Commander Legends Spoilers, and the card that I want to talk about is Promise of Tomorrow, which is a mono white card. It costs 2 of anything and 1 white for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, exile it. Now, that's not usually a good thing. You might want your creatures in the graveyard to reanimate them. Graveyard strategies are everywhere in Commander, I would say. So a card that only exiles your own creatures that die seems strange, but then if you read the rest of the ability, it will make sense. At the beginning of each end step, if you control no creatures, then you sacrifice Promise of Tomorrow and return all cards exiled with it to the battlefield under your control. So, basically, if your opponent does not kill Promise of Tomorrow, then this can be a mass reanimation spell for just 3 mana. Let's say you have 5 creatures on the field and your opponent plays Day of Judgment. Well, Promise of Tomorrow will exile all of them. Now you have no more creatures on the battlefield, so Promise of Tomorrow will bring all of your creatures back, triggering any ETB effects. So basically, this is an anti-wrath, anti-Day of Judgment type card. It prevents your opponent from being able to capitalize on board wipes, knowing that at the end of any turn, you will be able to bring those creatures straight back. So that's a very reactive way to play Promise of Tomorrow. I think the better way to play Promise of Tomorrow is in a deck that sacrifices your own creatures. So basically, you create a whole bunch of creatures, you generate a whole bunch of effects, and then you sacrifice those creatures. And when your board is completely empty, when you've sacrificed everything you've got, you know at the end of your turn those creatures are going to come back, so you can sacrifice again. You can sacrifice them all again, and rinse and repeat. Of course, Promise of Tomorrow will not come back unless you have a way to get back an enchantment, which we just saw a card that can return enchantments to the battlefield. So I guess those make an interesting combo together. I really like Promise of Tomorrow. I actually think it goes in a number of decks, including a black-white sacrifice deck. If you're sacrificing your own things, you're generating effects, but Promise of Tomorrow will pretty much allow you to sacrifice every card twice for twice the value. I also think this works very well in a... No, not her. Do I have it? Oh, here she is. I think this works very well in a Tessa Orzhov deck. Tessa is white and black, and she allows you to sacrifice 3 white creatures to exile target creature. And whenever another black creature you control dies, you get a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So in a white-black type of deck with a sacrifice theme, you can sacrifice all of your white creatures. Hopefully all of your creatures will be at least partially white. The deck really works well if all or most of your creatures are either white or multicolor white-black. So basically you use her first ability, sacrifice everything that you have, including her because she can sacrifice herself because she is white. You exile a bunch of creatures of your opponent. Hopefully some of those cards are black as well, so you get 1/1 white spirit creature tokens, which you can then sacrifice to Tessa Orzhov as well. And then your turn will end, and Promise of Tomorrow will activate, bringing Tessa back from exile along with any of the other non-token creatures you sacrificed using Tessa. So I think these 2 cards work very well together. And speaking of black-white cards, yeah, I guess I'll talk about this one now. We have seen that Timna the Weaver has been reprinted. I think it's officially been confirmed that all of the two-color partner cards are going to receive a reprint in etched foil. They will not be part of Commander Legends, the official set, but they are kind of like list cards in the sense that you can find them in collector boosters, and there's also a tiny chance that you can find them in the draft boosters as well. I mentioned Timna because she is a very competitive commander. Usually she gets partnered with Thrasios, mainly for the colors, but the ability to both gain life with her effect and draw cards has some value as well. I think Timna might not be as strong as she once was because we're getting a lot of partner commanders, and as I said, she was primarily used for her color identity, and I think there might be a better pairing for Thrasios. Then again, I could be wrong. Maybe since they've printed so many more partner cards, Timna will find an even better partner herself, and she will become even more competitive. But just want to throw her out there right now because she is a black-white card. And there is one more black-white card spoiled that I am really looking forward to. It's Dollys, I think is how you pronounce her name, but I'm not sure who this character is in lore, if she even is an established character already. Dollys, Reverent Medium, for 5 mana, 3 of anything, 1 black and 1 white. You get a human cleric, a legendary creature. She is legendary, so you can use her as a commander. And she is only uncommon, but she does not have partner. So if you're going to use her, you're just going to use her. She is a human, so tribal synergies, and she is a cleric. Clerics have received support very recently in Zendikar Rising, so that's kind of interesting. So at the beginning of each end step, you can create X11 white spirit creature tokens with flying equal to the number of creature tokens you created this turn. That's very powerful, I would say. If you have a way to repeatedly generate tokens, she will essentially double the number of tokens you create. Yes, she only creates 1/1, so even if you put a 4/4 flying angel onto the battlefield, she will only at the end of turn create a 1/1 flying token. But you can use the tokens to sacrifice. As we've seen, that seems to be a popular theme in Black White, that a lot of the cards spoiled today kind of lean into that black white sacrifice token theme. The tokens also do have evasion, they do fly, and I would play her in a deck where I can generate a huge number of smaller tokens rather than creating one larger token. In black and white, I've mentioned this before, Lingering Souls and Spectral Procession are very powerful, and they would definitely see play in this deck. I also like Increasing Devotion in a deck based on her. Increasing Devotion costs 5 mana, and it creates 5/5 1/1 tokens. So for 5 mana, if you also have this commander on the battlefield, by the end of turn you will have 10 1/1 tokens, which is pretty powerful. Increasing Devotion also has Flashback, which allows you, for a huge cost, to create 10 1/1 tokens. Usually that's not worth it, but you can cast it out of your graveyard, so it's essentially free. But if you have her on the battlefield, when you cast that card with Flashback, it will create 20 1/1 tokens, which is very decent. So any sorcery or instant spell that can create multiple tokens, especially if those spells have X in their cost, would work extremely well with this commander. And I'm actually very interested in building a white-black token deck using this commander. If the Madru Enchantment commander is not my favorite spoiled today, then I think this card was my favorite new card spoiled today. I think she's deceptively powerful, and the fact that she's only an uncommon is unusual because I think she's on a rare power level. I would also run a lot of cards that can produce tokens every single turn. So I just don't want one-shot effects that generate a lot of tokens, although I am going to play, obviously, some in a deck featuring her. But I want cards that put tokens onto the battlefield every single turn, preferably for no mana, because I know if I'm able to get a token on every turn, including every opponent's turn, I will get an additional 1/1 flyer free of cost as well. So, do you have a build that you think would fit this commander? Are black-white tokens the best color combination for tokens? White does have populate as well, but it's kind of been a while since black dipped its toes into the whole token theme. Usually tokens are now a white and a green thing, and there have been a number of commanders that focus on tokens in those colors, so I'm glad to see a new one focused on white-black because I always like the white-black token type deck. You can also run Anthem cards in this deck, since you're going to create probably a whole bunch of 1/1 little tokens. You might want to run Honor of the Pure and cards like that that boost up tokens. There are also cards that specifically boost your tokens or work with tokens in some way, so I would probably throw a few of those in this deck as well. Well, since we're staying in white, I'll just go over this card. It's Port Street Denzian. This is a reprint. It's a 3 mana, 2/2 human soldier for 2 of anything on 1 white. So when another white creature enters the battlefield, you just tap a creature that target opponent controls. It's not great. It's just a common and it's a reprint. I just wanted to go over some of the cards that I'm seeing. Another common white card, Anointer of Value. No, I wish it was an Anointer of Value. This is an Anointer of Valor. For 6 mana, 5 of anything, and 1 white, you get a 3/5 flyer. For 6 mana, 3/5 flying is not particularly a good rate of return, so the effect needs to be amazing. Angel is a very popular creature type, but doesn't have much tribal support. So what do you get for this 6 mana cost, which is a lot? So whenever a creature attacks, you may pay 3 mana, so you're already investing 6 mana. Every time a creature attacks, you can invest 3 more, but again, that's pretty expensive. When you do, you put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. So the first thing I thought was, that's it. I paid 6 mana for a 3/5 flyer, which is not efficient. And whenever a creature attacks, I have to pay, well, I don't have to, I may pay 3 more, and all I'm getting for that 3 mana is a +1/+1 counter on an attacking creature. So basically, even for a common, I don't think this is playable. Even in limited, I don't think I would want to play this. Also, when a creature attacks, either they should get the +1/+1 counter for free, or maybe for 1 mana, but the fact that it will cost you 3 per creature, and the creatures need to attack, make this something I do not want to play, ever. Hopefully, I would never be in a situation in Commander where I would be so desperate as to play that, even in like an Angel Tribal deck. Next card is another card that works with +1/+1 counters, Inspiring Roar. It's a sorcery. For 3 of anything and 1 white, you have a very simple effect. It's put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So better than that Angel, but still not good enough. I don't want to pay 4 mana just to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature. Yes, if you have a token army, this would be decent, but I would rather play almost any Anthem effect over Inspiring Roar. Even in a deck where the +1/+1 counters are being used for other things, the deck has +1/+1 counter synergies. There are way better ways to get counters on all your creatures, in my opinion. This card is from Kaladesh, though. I don't know if it was flavored from Kaladesh or it was originally in Kaladesh. I think it was originally in the Kaladesh block, because the Kaladesh block did have a +1/+1 counter theme. If you're running maybe a flavor-based deck and you want to use like every card that has a Johnny or a Johnny flavor text, then I guess you could consider this card. I don't know if there's like 50 or 60 a Johnny cards out there, so this one might have to go in the deck if you want to build a 100% a Johnny deck, even though I don't think that's really recommended. However, Johnny cards usually do focus on powering up creatures or, powering up or protecting creatures. He also has the life gain theme, but I don't know. Not great in my opinion. As I said, I don't think some of these spoilers are as good as the ones yesterday. Nope, we looked at this already. How about this one? Finally a black card. So 4 mana, 3 of anything, 1 black for a 2/4. It's a vampire shaman. And for 4 more mana, you may exile a creature from your graveyard, so that's pretty expensive. So for 4 mana, you get a 2/4, which is not good. And to activate his ability, you have to pay 4 more mana, so 8 mana in total. You exile a creature card from your graveyard. Not usually a good thing either, because in a black deck, you usually want your creatures to stay in your graveyard so you can reanimate them or whatnot. But, you can't get a whole bunch of cards into your graveyard in black, so, maybe one of them is expendable. But for 4 mana, you can create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. If you have a whole bunch of mana, you can use this effect repeatedly in one turn. However, there are way more efficient cards in black to create the zombie token, so if that's your goal, then play something else. Also, it's not a zombie itself, so if you have a zombie tribal theme going on, this is a vampire and not a zombie. I do like the flavor behind this card. I think I've mentioned this in one of my videos that focus more on lore. So, the vampires of Zendikar cannot make other vampires. Only the Blood Chiefs, the strongest and oldest of the vampires, can create more vampires. There's only one living Blood Chief left on Zendikar, so the vampires are actually in danger of going extinct. So several of the vampires are looking for a way to somehow create more Blood Chiefs so that they can create more vampires. So what happens when one of the lesser vampires bites a human or tries to transform a human? Well, they create a null, which is why this card is called Null Color. A null is just a zombie, basically. It's one of the zombies of Zendikar. So, good flavor behind the card, but not good enough, not strong at all. I think even in limited, I would probably not play it. The next card is Rockdose. This is another reprint. Once again, this is an etch foil, so it's not going to be in the set officially. It's going to be in the set, I guess you would say, unofficially. Rockdose doesn't make a bad commander. I don't remember this card being particularly expensive. And of all the reprints in etch foil that we've seen, this is one of the weaker and I think lesser played commanders. I could be wrong, but I don't think this is one of the better choices for a reprint. But maybe you disagree. Maybe you are a huge Rockdose fan. So tell me what you think about Rockdose. So here he is. Did we talk about this guy yet? I think we did. Thrasios, but I'll mention just a few things. Thrasios, Triton hero, costs 1 blue and 1 green, so just 2 mana. Hit a legendary creature, Merfolk Wizard. He's a 1/3. So you can pay 4 mana to scry 1. Then you look at the top card of your library. You draw it if it's a non-land, And if it's a land, you can put it directly onto the battlefield. So this does everything that basically Simic wants to do for a low cost. You can either, first of all, it lets you scry, which is valuable information. Then it lets you either ramp if you need the ramp, or if you see a card that you really want to add to your hand, this will also allow you to just draw a card. 4 mana is kind of expensive for that effect. When I originally saw this card spoiled, all the way back then, not now, when it was first printed, I thought, this card is not great. Maybe in a blue-green Merfolk type deck, I could use him as a decent commander, and maybe I would partner him with a black partner because there are a few black Merfolk, or maybe I would partner him with a white commander because there are some pretty good white Merfolk as well. In Lauren, the Merfolk were obviously primarily blue. They were also white in the 2 Lauren sets, but by the time we rolled around to Shadowmoor, a lot of them were blue or blue-black. And there's actually 2 versions of Sig. Sig was one of the Merfolk legendary creatures in both Lauren and Shadowmoor. He got 2 forms to show how he changed. One of them is a blue-white Merfolk, and the other is a blue-black Merfolk, showing the differences between Lauren and Shadowmoor. Shadowmoor being a dark reflection of a lot of the cards from original Lauren. He is one of the strongest commanders, and I can't see him getting weaker. They printed so many new partners that I'm sure he will find a partner well suited to his abilities. Timna is usually the partner of choice with Thrasios, and they make a very strong combination. But I don't know if Timna is going to continue to be used with Thrasios. I think Thrasios might have found a better partner in some of the cards that have been spoiled already, and we're not even done with spoiler season yet, so definitely this card's power level is going to go up instead of down. Maybe eventually this card will get outclassed, but again, if they keep printing new cards with partner, I think this card is only going to get more powerful and more expensive. This reprint helps lower the price though, so that's a good thing. Okay, next we have Rings of Brighthearth. So this is an artifact, costs just 3 mana. When you activate an ability, if it isn't a mana ability, you can pay 2. If you do, you copy that ability, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So this card was getting extremely expensive. I believe this is Rings of Brighthearth's first reprint. I could be wrong about that, but I think it was, again, from that Lauren Shadowmoor era where a lot of the cards were not really printed in high volumes, especially compared to today. And Rings of Brighthearth is so good in so many different commander decks. Basically, if your commander has an activated ability, you probably want to use Rings of Brighthearth to double that ability. I know a lot of commanders live or die basically on their abilities, and this gives you 2 of said ability. This could have easily have been Mythic as well. Rings of Brighthearth has gotten just so expensive that they could have printed this at Mythic and no one would have batted an eye. I'm glad it's rare though. It's going to make the card more affordable in the long run because just so many different commander decks want to run this card. Unfortunately, I can't say that about all the artifacts in Commander Legends because I recently looked at the prices of Jeweled Lotus and I was shocked. I don't remember a card during the pre-release time being as expensive as Jeweled Lotus, even at Mythic Rare. I was expecting Jeweled Lotus to top, $100, maybe be $100 at pre-release, and then I thought it was going to go slowly down from there until it settled at about $50 in the short term and maybe even go a little lower. Right now, I think it's pre-selling for about $150. I've seen some as high as $200. The extended art foil I've seen for like over $250. So I don't know what that means for the health of the game. If so many different Commander decks need to run Jeweled Lotus to be competitive, then will the price ever lower? And I was talking to a few people online and in forums and things like that, and they said, well, that price cannot possibly hold. This card only sees play in one format, and it's a casual format at that. So how can you expect Jeweled Lotus to stay over $100? You can't take it to a vintage tournament. You can't use it in Legacy. You can only use it with your friends at a kitchen table or casually. However, I have to say that I think in today's era, most people who play Magic play Commander. I don't think people play casually with 60 card decks as much anymore. I used to, and I haven't done that for many, many years. If I want to play casually, if I don't want to play Standard, basically I don't really play Modern or Pioneer or Historic much. If I'm going to play casually, basically non-standard, I'm going to play Commander. I tried Brawl. I didn't love it. I don't like that the Brawl decks rotate. If I'm gonna play Brawl, then I just might as well play Standard because I'm gonna have to change my deck every year or 2 years anyway. There are some Commander decks that I have sitting in my closet and in my toolboxes that I haven't even changed in several years, and I've been meaning to, but sometimes it's just so hard to find specific cards in a huge collection. So I'm just happy that I don't have to constantly take out and remove cards because the cards rotate out. I do have to change cards because the power level of Commander has increased over the past 2 or 3 years, but they are still playable. If someone's playing a Commander deck with not a tremendous level of power, I would probably feel comfortable picking up even a Commander deck I haven't used in 5 years, and I think I could still hang with some of the lower power level newer Commanders, but maybe I'm wrong. So what else? Okay, this is a reprint as well. Furnace Celebration. I think this is from Scars of Maraudin block sometime during that time frame. It's an enchantment. It costs 3 mana, 1 of anything, and 2 red. But even though it's an enchantment, it really works more with artifacts. Whenever you sacrifice another permanent, you may pay 2 mana. If you do, Furnace Celebration deals 2 damage to any target. Actually, I didn't realize that you can sacrifice any permanent with this ability. I thought you could only actually sacrifice artifact cards. That's kind of interesting that you can sacrifice anything. However, this card does not sacrifice itself, so you would need to find a sacrifice outlet. In addition to that, even if you find a free sacrifice outlet, in order to get Furnace of Celebration's effect, you still have to pay 2 colorless mana. And what do you get for jumping through all those hoops? You get, 2 damage to any target? I just don't think that's good enough in Commander. I've seen some 60 card decks, I've seen some decks that use Furnace Celebration as a win condition in a maybe Rockdose type sacrifice build, but that's playing with 20 life. In Commander, when you start with 40, it's just a different ball game. I don't think Furnace Celebration is very playable in Commander. It's in Commander Legends, so I guess I could be wrong. But I think this is more an on-theme card to support like sacrifice decks. It is uncommon. I think this card could be common and it would still be fine. Okay, what is next? Okay, so I like this card. I'm going to say it right now, right off the bat. I think I'm biased because I really like this card. It's War Room. It's a land. It's a colorless land. It does not enter tapped, which I always like in my lands. A lot of commander decks would be slowed down by a land that enters the battlefield tapped. So I try to use as many lands as possible that come into play untapped. Now in a 3, 4, 5 color deck, I probably wouldn't use War Room. Well, first, when you read the effect, you will see why. But I also don't like to run too many colorless lands in a deck that is 3, 4, or 5 colors because it it kind of messes with your mana. And just because, and you may be able to draw a whole bunch of lands, but unless you have 3 colors, all 3 of your colors in a 3-color deck, or in a 5-color deck, unless you have all 5 of your colors readily available, the deck will not function as well as it should. So War Room, it enters untapped, so that's great. It just adds 1 colorless, so that's pretty good. It's the ability that's going to make or break it, and it costs 3 mana, and you need to tap it, so you need to have 3 other lands plus War Room on the battlefield if you want to use it. And what does it do? It says pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity, and then draw a card. So a lot of people have been screaming that mono white needs card draw, mono red needs card draw, not as much as mono white. And this is a colorless way, so it doesn't break the color pie, it doesn't really bend the color pie. This is a colorless way for a mono white or a mono red deck to draw a card on a land too, and on a land that comes into play untapped. If you're running a single color or a 2-color deck, you can probably afford to run a few colorless lands that just produce colorless that come into play untapped. So I think any mono white deck should find room for War Room. If you're playing mono white, if you're playing mono white or mono red, then this should be one of the first cards that you include in your land base. However, I would consider it for 2-color decks as well. If I'm running a Boros deck, I don't think I would mind paying 2 life and then drawing a card. So 3 mana plus a tap plus 2 life to draw a card in Boros seems decent, especially since you don't really need to use that ability. It could just function as a regular land. In a 2-color deck, you shouldn't be struggling to find all of your colors, so please play War Room. This is probably one of the better cards spoiled so far. I expect this card eventually to get very high in value. It can only really be played in Commander though, but I still think this is going to be a $10 to $20 card in a few years. Also, if you have 2 commanders that are different colors, it counts both of their color identities. So if you have a white partner commander that's partnered with a red partner commander, you would still lose 2 life. You wouldn't just lose 1 because one of your commanders is 1 color. You would still lose 2. I think a few people were asking about that. So I don't think I went through all of the spoilers. I think there are actually a few more. Let me see if they're in my files. But I actually think I'm going to cut this video right now. I will be putting up a continuation, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, going over some of the spoilers that I did not cover. Most of the others cards spoiled, like the rest of the Val cycle, are either reprints or they're not particularly strong, so maybe there's not much to say about them. But I'm kind of a completionist, and I would probably like to cover every card in Commander Legends, so I probably will eventually cover those cards. However, I want to thank everyone for their comments, their likes, your questions. I do appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I feel like I've become a bigger influence on the community. I've become a better player just by analyzing these cards. So, I hope everyone has a great night. Tomorrow is Halloween as well, so I may be putting up a special. I've been thinking about putting up a video for quite a while, and I think Halloween is the day that I'm actually going to record it. So please look out for that. It actually has nothing to do with Commander at all or Commander Legends. I'm not going to spoil it too much though, but please tune in because it's something that I haven't really seen anyone else talking about. So, once again, I am Jeremy Class. This is Magic with Class, and I'm always reminding you to gather with class.